Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. I'm here tonight, joined by Dan, Colin, and Charlie to discuss the latest developments around the Liverpool Football Club, and of course, to have a match preview. Sorry for our trip to Southampton tomorrow afternoon. Now, we are definitely going to discuss topics that are not necessarily they are not directly related to Liverpool Football Club, and by that I mean what just happened a few minutes ago. Do not scratch your eyes. This is really happening. Yeah. Well, don't get too excited. Don't. This is not a drill. This is actually happening. We're gonna have to see how it goes tomorrow. This just makes tomorrow's match that more important, especially when thinking about what's going to happen in the future and the fixtures that we're going to have. I don't know if you guys checked the schedule, but we're going to play every 3 days until December 29th, I believe. So that's going to be fun. No more international breaks, so that leaves room for every single competition that we have left. So, yeah, well, good. I mean, we all are, aren't we? I think it's just trying to it's always the pessimist in me, thinking about the two seasons where what happened in 18, 19, and 21, 22. But we're not going to discuss that right now. There's a lot still to happen. Please remember to like, subscribe to the channel, and of course leave your thoughts there in the comments as well. I'd love to have your thoughts and integrate them into these conversations. Until then, Charlie, how's your evening, mate?
Hello, sorry. I think there may be a little delay on my side. I'm really sorry. So hopefully this will be all right. I am going to get excited. I want to be excited. That's the whole point about being a football fan and Liverpool fan, and especially what a introduction to Arne Slot and his season. Just everything seems to be kind of falling into place. I love it. Yeah, I just have already heard Arsenal fans bigging up Chelsea. I've got a friend of mine that's already kind of mentioned Chelsea. What a time to be alive, hey. But yeah, but then also, hey, you have just kind of just dampened the mood a little bit for me about thinking about the fixtures because they are some tough ones coming up. But we'll I'm sure we'll be talking through that, won't we?
Yep, indeed. I don't know about you guys, but when I saw the third goal go in, I just had the Michael Scott from The Office, saying, "Okay, this is not a drill. This is not a drill. Everybody stay cool." That's been my brain ever since like the last for the last 30 minutes. I don't know if that means I'm chronically online or that I'm just getting too excited, but one or the two, or maybe both. Dan, how about you, mate?
Yeah, it was a nice thing to wake up to watching City get pummeled by Tottenham by Ange Postecoglou's Porro and James Madison led Tottenham. And the fact that it even went 4-0 by the end with Brendan Johnson scoring is absolutely crazy. Yeah, I mean, you know, we actually went through probably the most difficult part of our season the last run in because we had Leipzig, Leverkusen, Chelsea, Arsenal, and we pretty much won every game except the Arsenal one away, and that was, fine because we don't have a great record at the Emirates. We went down and we took it back to 2-2, and we probably could have won that game maybe if we were being pushing for it, but I felt that Slot did the right thing and saying, "Hey, we got back to 2-2. We're just going to take the draw and walk out of here." And then you've seen, Arsenal have utterly collapsed pretty much for the most part after that. City, once they had their injury to Rodri and now Kovacic, they just are not the same monster, the same beast. They don't have a top scorer except for Erling Haaland and Josef Guardiola, which, as talented as Josef Guardiola is, I don't think your left back should be your second highest. Your second left back, your left back, second center back should be your second highest goal scorer for their team. So listen, if the run in is both not too bad, but also that kind of makes it even worse. The fact that it's Southampton away, it's Madrid at home, it's City at home, Newcastle away, Everton away, Fulham at home, and then Tottenham away, and then Leicester at home with West Ham away. So we have a lot of away games coming up, not that many home games that you would see. However, if we go through that with, if not max points or as close to max points as you can get, especially with the Derby at Goodison Park and Obviously, City at home and Tottenham away. If you can get close to max points, like, I mean, you can have potentially be ahead with 15 to 16 points going into the new year. And at that point, it's really our title to lose. Right now, I don't think anyone should be saying, like, Arsenal fans are going to say this because they haven't won one in 20 years. And so they're going to say, oh, Liverpool shouldn't bottle this, yada, yada. At this point, it's anyone's game still because the gap is 6 points, I think, between us and Arsenal. And I think is it 8 now? Or no, it could be 8, but it's 5 now between us and City, I believe. That's not an insurmountable gap. Liverpool made up a 12-point gap on City and could have won on the final day in 21-22. So for us, it's more of just winning our games from now until, I mean, really West Ham. I would say, like, by the time we kick off against West Ham United, we could be in a position where we can go 15 or 16 clear, or we would just maintain 8 or 6 point gap. But in either one of those universes, the league title is not over. Even if we're 15, 16 clear, I would say, like, yeah, it is ours to lose. But if it's 5 to 6 that we're clear of, it's going to be much tighter, much closer. But I think what we've seen from this squad is they've handled pressure very well. And even when we went behind against Brighton and we weren't playing well, we still managed to come back and win. We still have both that old Klopp magic of being able to turn around a game very quickly, but now we have that more control over most of our games. And so, I mean, listen, I'm just being perfectly honest. I trust that we can win all these games on a canter and essentially be in the semifinals of the Carabao Cup and be clear in our Champions League group by the New Year's with potentially a 15-point gap at the top of the table. And at that point, we're just like, life's good. We get to go into 2025 with a new lease on life. And then everyone's going to lose their mind again when Manchester City by Martin Zubimendi and Liverpool by fucking no one from South Korea.
Okay, yeah, that was an abrupt end. Yeah, well, it is. I think December is going to be such an important month, obviously, because of the fixture congestion. Now, when you look at it, that's why I agree with you, Dan, and that's why I believe 8 points aren't that big of a deal now, when you think about all the games that we're going to have to play in the Prem in December. So yeah, there's still a long way to go, but if you're going to be in anyone's shoes, this is it looks like a pretty good moment to be Liverpool supporter, Liverpool player, whatever you want to consider it. Yeah, Colin, how about you, mate?
Yeah, doing really well. Always happy to see City suffer. I was chatting with my friends the other night. We were doing Mount Rushmore of our least favorite sports franchises and sports players of all time. City right towards the top of my least favorite sports franchises of all time. So always happy to see them in misery. It's always a joy, I think. Honestly, and there's a lot of talk of the fixture list. Honestly, there's like 8 or 9 days in January, but honestly, it's like nonstop every 3 days until the end of January, at least. Even after that, there's we come back from a break so there's January 5th to January 14th, but that's 14th, 18th, 21st, 25th, 29th. So it doesn't really stop. I think one of the best things, though, or one of the things I try to keep in mind is like not, less about, well, if we have points here, then we can lose, we give ourselves a cushion. And I think that the way that the players see it and the way that I try to see it is much more like, get as many points as you can when they're available. Win the game that's in front of you and bank the points and don't worry about it. Even if you draw a game, if it's that other team has been, you're playing away against a really good team, and you get the point, just take the point and be happy with it and move on and go to the next game and expect to win the next game. As everybody has said, I fully expect our ability to be winning every game in front of us. I'm sure there will be losses and draws within the next 2 months, but I think part of the mentality that is going to be so important for us to have if we want, if we're going to win championships, is to, when those occur, to not let them be 3 or 4 game, 5 game stretches. Like, this Manchester City team is very clearly like not in the right mind space at the moment, and they're very affected by the fact that they have never lost this many games. They haven't lost this many games in a row since 2016 or something like that. When none of these players were there. Maybe I don't even think Kevin De Bruyne was there. So I think having that kind of really strong mentality about compartmentalizing per game, get the points. If they're not there, move on, get the next one. I think is going to be really important, and hopefully leads to a really successful couple of months for us.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the correct way to look at it, or maybe the healthy way to look at it, if you will. I think obviously it's easy to kind of get lost into the whole congestion, into the whole, difficult ones that we're gonna have. Like, for example, I dread Newcastle away on a Wednesday night. That doesn't sound too appealing. Everton away on a random, Tuesday night as well. Doesn't sound that great, but let's take it game by game. We now have Southampton tomorrow. So, Charlie, it does look like a pretty easy fixture looking at it on paper, right? Kind of one thing that I wanted to mention before going into this, there's a very, very slim chance that the game might get called off, although I feel like that's close to zero now. There's apparently some wind alert in the south, and there's going to be some, interesting conditions. But due to this congestion, I kind of assume that it's going to be, the chances of kind of putting the game off, or, putting it for like a, I don't know, later month, I feel like that's very slim. But there's been talk about that. Going back to the opposition, though, it feels like a pretty one of the easiest fixtures you're going to have, right? But away from home, we all know if it's something that Liverpool do away from home against a newly promoted side, we always get tough games. So, your thoughts on the opposition?
Yeah, I mean, they play good football. Even Arne Slot's just kind of spoken about the style of football that they play. I think they've got a good manager, got a good team, some really, really interesting players that could develop over the next kind of, maybe end of the season. You reevaluate the team that they've got, and there may be players that other teams in the Premier League, maybe Liverpool, might be interested in taking. But they're not bad, and I think just let's kind of think about Wolverhampton Wanderers as well. They've struggled for a while, but they actually picked up a really good win today away from home. I kind of put them in the same bracket as Southampton. Southampton can actually get out of this funk that they've got. Hopefully not starting tomorrow. But Ipswich away wasn't the easiest game, though on paper it probably should have been handled a little bit differently from ourselves. But I think you guys have kind of mentioned it, and it's probably plastered over everywhere. The result today should refocus the guys for tomorrow, in the sense of there's a job to be done. We do not let this opportunity get away from us. We take every game, because Man City's so close, because Newcastle away, because Everton away. We can't actually afford to drop the points here at silly grounds, and easier fixtures when we've got 3 tough ones coming up. So I'm fully confident in the way that we'll take the game, and how professional we will be. But there's no easy fixtures in the league, the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. Then, well, we're gonna obviously go into this one thinking, as Charlie said, that there is a job that needs to be done. We're gonna get, one way or another, we need to get 8 points clear by the evening tomorrow. I don't care how we do it personally. Like, obviously you don't want a stressful game, but at the end of the day, if we get a dodgy pen in the 88th minute after Nunez dive or something like that, I don't care. We get it. We're going to take it. We're going to take the points and we're going to go 8 points clear. So, honestly, when I looked at it, I thought Southampton away, it looks like it's a fixture everyone would, take, like, you wouldn't necessarily consider one of the most difficult ones, but now taking into account the weather conditions as well, it's like it's not going to be necessarily as easy as maybe people think.
No, I mean playing a game of football, with a highly wind condition, can be a great equalizer, especially Southampton being on the south coast and the English Channel being famously a very calm and peaceful area during the winter months of November and December, which is why there are so many famous cruise lines that go through that area of the world for tropical destinations during the winter time. It's so beautiful. The long and short of it is, I take Charlie's point of that. Wolves, Southampton are usually probably the worst team in this league by far. And I don't mean that in the sense of that they don't have good players. They're all mostly championship level players. Cameron Archer, which is a player that a lot of people at Villa like, but he's only really been successful in the championship. Maxwell Cornet, who was mostly at Burnley, but again, he was someone at Olympique Lyon, but he's only really been successful when he was in the championship. Ramsdale's a goalkeeper, McCarthy, Kyle Walker-Peters, who is someone that people wanted as a backup right back, but as we've come to see that there are definitely better players in Liverpool's academy than at Southampton. Adam Armstrong, Adam Lallana, Will Smallbone, Jack Stevens, Ben Diaz, who was at Sheffield United last year, Mateus Fernandez. The only one I think that is of any real quality that we would want is someone like Leslie Ugochukwu, who was the 20-year-old midfielder at Chelsea, and Bella Kotchap, who has been injury prone, but is someone that everyone was raving about last year as a potential youth signing at center back, and maybe even so in the future. Weather conditions aside, Liverpool, if they want to win the league, if they're a serious football club, if you are going to have a chance to win the title this year, and not even just be in a pole position, but win it, you're going to have to go to Southampton and get a result no matter who you're playing against. I'm not saying that in any way that, like Charlie said, there are no easy games in the Premier League, but Wolves have much more talent and a much better manager. I rate Russell Martin very highly, but Southampton at this point remind me a lot of Burnley with Vincent Kompany, in the sense that they're playing a very set way of playing that not necessarily benefits where they are in the position and the type of personnel they have. But I mean, there's no negotiation on this. Like, if Liverpool want to win the league, they're gonna have to go win, and Arne Slot knows that. The players know that, and we're more than good enough to go there and get a 2-0 win or a 3-0 win. They're gonna have to fight for it because Southampton are obviously not going to roll over. But if they get an early goal, maybe 2-0, they'll shake hands at halftime and call it, and we'll go home with a 2-0, 3-0 win. Where Southampton all right, we lost, we put up a good show, let's move on. And that's essentially what's going to come down to. The real question is that with our players coming back, who are we going to have starting the line? Because the eternal question of Liverpool online fandom and essentially in our group chat forever and always, besides when the new DM is coming in, Charlie, when's the new DM coming in? Mihai, when's our new DM coming in? That's the first one. The second one is, are you going to start Darwin Nunez or Diogo Jota? I mean, obviously, I don't think he's ready to play yet, as far as I'm aware from all of the reports. So I think that Nunez is going to be the starting striker until he gets injured or Slot benches him. And I think Nunez has shown, in my opinion, a lot of growth in his overall game. Obviously, he's not ever going to be a hyper efficient finisher. He may not even be an elite level finisher that you want out of a forward, like 20% or 25%. But if he maintains a 15 to 20% conversion rate of his shots and he creates chances, I think if he can keep that up, I think we'll win the league. And for right now, from now until December, the way through Liverpool is going to be through Salah, Nunez, Gravenberch, Van Dijk, and Kelleher. That's going to be the spine of the team that's going to get us through these next couple of games. It is nice though that we do have Harvey Elliott back, so we have a little bit more options we can rotate with our 10/mid, our deeper midfield, because people are not Szoboszlai has not had the best season, I think, is the most politically correct way to say that, along with Andrew Robertson. But even if Robertson and Szoboszlai are having off games against Southampton, which is incompletely possible, there's way too much attacking talent and talent in that team and coaching to not get a result. And honestly, if we don't get a result against Southampton, it doesn't mean we're not going to win the league. It doesn't mean that, the world is ending, but it is one of those markers where this is the moment where Liverpool can press the advantage going into this December. If you want to break the will of Arsenal and City, if you want to go into this title challenge going forward with the strongest possible outcome, you're going to have to go and get a result against Southampton.
I've got a point on that as well. What we've seen so far this season is the ability to capitalize on the mistakes of Man City and Arsenal. What we haven't been able to do that in previous years for whatever reason, but this season seems different because we're a different animal. We're a bit more consoled. We take the bull by the horns in terms of the games, but when it comes to the actual results, we are capitalizing on other teams making mistakes in the game, but also outside of our match, and teams that we feel are rivals for the championship or for Champions League positions. But yeah, I think that's the difference that we're seeing in this team, and so long may it continue, and hopefully we can continue it for tomorrow. And I think that's another big marker, just exactly what Dan's saying. Tomorrow's another marker for this team, regardless of whether it's just Southampton, but it just kind of solidifies the way that people assess this Liverpool team and takes us a little bit more seriously, rather than being the banter team and hoping for us to be slipping up. Just again, same thing what Dan and said about Arsenal and City fans. Certainly, more Arsenal fans. It's breaking their minds rather than their bodies, because once you get into their heads, they're done.
Yeah, I think it almost like the result, the result for this game between City and Spurs almost kind of puts a bit, that additional pressure on us, and that's another reason why I don't expect the game tomorrow to be necessarily easy. I think it's going to be nervy at times, but as you guys said, I feel like defensively we are a bit more compact compared to the last few seasons, and it also feels like, I don't know about you, but I have this, when watching Liverpool this season, I feel like it's our style in a way has slightly changed in terms of how we inside in the way of how we play in the first 15 minutes, sorry, of the game. It feels like we're almost not necessarily on a high press, and it's all chaotic and creating lots of chances. It's almost like studying the opponent and then kind of seeing at a moment where we can switch on, and then from there on it's like no turning back. Well, granted, against Brighton, for example, it did take a bit longer to get into the game, but hopefully not going to be the same for tomorrow. Colin, then, winnable, right? Like, we should definitely win this one tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely winnable. I think one of the points, Mihai, that you just made, I think that is sort of resonating with me as well, is that this game, to me, because of the weather conditions, because of where the opponent is in the table, because of Liverpool being in first, which I think lower level teams, for example, like Southampton season ticket holders are not selling their season ticket to a friend, or to someone from out of town. They're going to see this game, so their crowd will be up for it. The weather will, anytime that there's really bad weather in a sporting event, it's always an equalizer. Everybody's got to, adapt to that. So regardless of it not being, definitely being a team that is of lower quality, and a team that we definitely should beat, I find real interest in, I think Jurgen Klopp teams in the past have kind of struggled in these sort of games. I think a lot about having to go to Burnley. It might have been Burnley like on Boxing Day, and it was like a 1-1 tie or something like that. Like some miserable results in a like horrible weather against a team that is like 19th or 20th. I'm really interested to see how this Liverpool team approaches and how they hopefully dispatch with teams like this in games like this in particular. Doesn't matter that they're that much worse than us. It when you're in first place, and it's been they haven't played a ton of games over the past like month and a half. To have a home game against Liverpool, that will be one of the definitely one of the two biggest games for them all year for their fans. So they'll certainly turn up. It will be difficult, but I am really interested to see, like you mentioned, how we're kind of analyzing them as a team and how we're trying to figure out how to break them down best in game, and not just like we're going to try to run through you, which I at times I do miss. I'm not going to lie. Like sometimes I'm like, go press, but I have to check myself and think, okay, no, like this is more methodical. It is more, it's a more thoughtful approach, which is not bad. It just is retraining yourself about what you're watching. So I'm very interested to see the game for sure.
Yeah, I think if we were to, if we compared Jurgen to like a heavy metal solo, it feels like Slot is more like a surgeon. It's very, as you said, it's very methodical. It all seems like you're first gonna have to go in like a bit slower. You're gonna have to study the opponent, and then at some point you're just gonna get the job done. So yeah, it feels like it's a weird, how do I put it? It's like the script when you see Liverpool play this season. Even if they start a game, a bit slower, they will get into it at some point. And when they do, now with all the depth that we have, especially for our front three, we can definitely score like 3 goals in 10 minutes and get the job done inside of that window without necessarily having the best of games. So I think we've seen it against Brighton as well, and also during the season. Next up, what I want to discuss is obviously we're coming off of an international break now. Obviously, there's going to be some rotation, I believe, in the starting 11, especially when thinking about the game they're going to have to play against Madrid midweek. Now, I don't know if you're going to, as Colin said, we're not supposed to think that ahead, but then again, you're also going to have to kind of Slot did say that he's going to play his best 11 on pretty much every chance that he gets, but definitely there's somewhere in his mind he's going to have that in the back of his head. So I'm just going to go through all compartments, and then I'm going to ask you guys. I'm going to start off with Charlie. What's your preferred front three for tomorrow?
I was going back to front. So I would go with, because the guys have been traveling, Salah's obviously going to be starting, Gakpo, and I would like to see Diaz play up front in the number 9. I've been a really big advocate. I've said this on a number of occasions. If you look at the goals that he scored throughout his Liverpool career, and I'm talking about Diaz, it's in between the posts. He acts like a number 9. It's a really, really, really good position for him, kind of Mane-esque in a certain way, but he's be able to bend his run past most defenses. So yeah, I'd love to see Diaz kind of get another chance, another opportunity to play the number 9, and then allow Nunes maybe just to go wild at Madrid. That's my front three anyway.
For me, the interesting thing is that usually after international breaks, you don't really see Diaz starting or maybe not getting as many minutes, and that's like one thing that I'm thinking about is, are we gonna see Diaz start tomorrow? So maybe that's something to go off then. I'm gonna ask you for, as you said, Szoboszlai didn't really have his best season, let's say, up until now at least. So your midfield for tomorrow.
I'm sorry, is this for me?
No, I was asking Dan.
Oh, that, yeah.
Mr. Underwood.
Well, I mean, so I think the midfield three he should go for is probably Jones, Grav, and Szoboszlai, just because that's probably your best three for the Southampton team, especially with McAllister traveling. I would make an argument. I know that Charlie mentioned Diaz in the nine, which I also agree. I love seeing Diaz in the nine just because it's a little bit different from Darwin at the nine or Jota at the nine or even Gakpo at the nine, because you get both that hold up play, but also that ability to spin in behind, which really only Darwin has outside of that. So it's very, he's not the same player, but it's very Mane-esque in the way that Diaz plays that number nine position. Though Mane was very much more not limited, but very much a goal scorer. Like he played that nine very much like a traditional nine in the sense of back the front, receive the ball, play it, and you finish the move, but you're not really providing assists. Like the idea is more that you are finishing moves that you help start, but you're not actually getting involved. So for me, that midfield three should be Gakpo should be Jones, Grav, and Szoboszlai. The reason why I wouldn't throw Elliott in is because you kind of want to play with the players that you have that are having playing more games, are more up to speed. And obviously after like 60 minutes, if the game is won or if you need to change it up, that's when you bring like a Harvey Elliott on as well. I do want to say though, especially for Dominic Szoboszlai, that I feel like we've always done this with one player, that we find a player to pick on. In the past, it's been Gini Wijnaldum. Then it was Jordan Henderson and James Milner. And then even before that, it was Emre Can. Or Joe Allen. It's always one player that we find that is the most limited of all the players. I think Szoboszlai has been, why I don't think he has had a good season, and I do agree with that because he should have more goals and assists by now. I would agree with that, and so would Slot, and so would Dom probably. He's also been very instrumental into how we play now as a team. And so I don't think we should ever look past it. The part of the reason we're doing so well is that what he is bringing to the table and bringing to the team, even if his execution of certain things has been lacking, and I think we can all agree with that. I know you're going to move on to probably Colin for the defense. For me, I think what's going to happen is that if Gakpo plays, I think Tsimikas plays. Whether or not we won't cost us Tsimikas to play, I think Slot has kind of hit on a really unique pairing of left back and left forward. So when certain forwards play, he likes to play their partner left back for that. And I think that's also happened as well, that Slot has very much emphasized certain partnerships, Ebo and Verge throughout the pitch. And so tomorrow I would expect Jones, Grav, and Szoboszlai to play. And that's who I would choose.
All right. Yeah, for me with Szoboszlai, just to chip in on that, it feels like it's about, like, for me, it's not necessarily that much about goals and assists, because those are going to come if you're going to play well, but it feels like it's like he doesn't create enough. You know what I mean? When I think about the position that Dom plays in, I'm thinking of someone who can find a pass that unlocks the defense, kind of switch directions a bit more quickly, and kind of get that the X factor that he seems to have for Hungary. Now, obviously, not the same position, not the same team, not the same tactics, but it's about unlocking that for Liverpool as well. And he seemed to have started off so well last season that it's almost such a shame in this run of form that he has now. But obviously, we're gonna have to judge him at the end of the season. That's probably the case for pretty much everyone. So, Colin, you're probably going to have the toughest job now, because you're going to have to give me 5 names for the back 5. I assume we're going to have to go with Kelleher and goal still. Alisson is still not completely fine, and probably you wouldn't want to risk him ahead of the schedule that we're going to have as well. So the interesting question is, as Dan kind of touched on, Tsimikas, Robbo at left back.
The one thing that is striking me about the defense as well is the their overall minutes usage for their international teams as well. So Trent's going to be out still, isn't he? Is Trent's not going to play? So obviously,
he's not available.
Yeah. So obviously it'll be Bradley, which is good because I think Bradley's great, but Bradley has played a lot of minutes.
But he's got youth on his side. He's got exuberance. Yeah. I wouldn't worry about Bradley getting too many minutes.
Would you go Gomez?
No. I probably would not. If he did play him, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't be like it wouldn't be the I also think that he likes Gomez better as a center back than he does as an outside back. So I would expect not to, but it wouldn't like be like it wouldn't be the end of the world or totally shocking to me if something like that was picked. To me, I definitely I think this is a Tsimikas game through and through. Um, I think he's played pretty well this year. I don't think he's like the world's best left back, but I think he's pretty good. And sometimes you need someone just to be pretty good when you need to give Robbo a break. And I've touched on this before, that the way that you really preserve aging players is not by playing them constantly, which was the most frustrating thing about Jurgen's kind of midfield decision making over his last like 3 years. You can't just continue to play old people. They don't get better. So I'm totally fine. I think more than fine with Tsimikas playing, and then as well, and then it's going to be Virgin Ibu. I think they pick themselves that they're healthy and they're available. Verge came back early. I don't, I don't think that's. I don't think there's really much debate there for me.
Probably, I would say not that much debating, considering them the best partnership this season in the Prem, even though some other fans were thinking that they have the best defense in the world. But it seems like, it doesn't take that much to kind of get it up and running as Slot kind of proved until now. And yeah, very good mention that I forgot actually to also bring up into this conversation is that they do have Ramsdale and I think Bednarek, that their ever-present center back. They're not going to play tomorrow, so that obviously once again should work in our favor. So we're obviously going to have to wait for it. I think it's a lot better to wait for the game tomorrow having 5 points in hand, so thinking about maybe jump into 8 than it would have been otherwise. So one other thing that I wanted to bring up is, yeah, go on.
Sorry, can I just bring back the Szoboszlai conversation, because I think the way I see it with Szoboszlai, and I'm being quite a passionate advocate of Szoboszlai. Yes, I know it can be frustrating when he doesn't pull the trigger or there's a particular pass that he doesn't play. But what we're seeing in terms of his numbers, if you look at it in two halves, you have his off the ball actions and his on ball actions. His off the ball actions is top rate. It is top tier in terms of his pressing, his running, his ability to turn over balls, to put pressure on an opposition. And I think that's really crucial. Now you lose that when he's not playing, and the evidence is there. The way I've seen it, if someone else could, in the chat, back me up, or just correct me if I'm wrong. But looking at those certain things, when you have, when we've lost Szoboszlai, in that number 10 position, the impact to the team is quite noticeable, and we've seen that when he's been then introduced into the team at halftime, or later on in the match. We've seen turnarounds in terms of performance and results as well. But yeah, I'm a big advocate, and I think also that the draw against Germany in midweek, where it's a last minute penalty, he's captain of his country, and to pull out the type of penalty that he did, that the Paneco, if that's what you want to call it, against Germany away, I think it was, just shows the confidence. Hopefully, he'll bring into this Liverpool team. Hopefully, it's just a case of he gets out of his head and he starts playing more naturally, because when the natural Dominic Szoboszlai comes in, I think we've got a really, really good player, and I think he will come good by the end of the season, I hope, anyway.
It's it's like I almost wish I could combine the best bits of Szoboszlai and Harvey Elliott. Like
Mm.
I want someone with the athleticism and the power and and the work ethic of Szoboszlai, but I want someone with the finesse and the touch and the ability to pick the pass
I
that
know
have.
a particular Frenchman. I know a particular Frenchman that plays for Lyon that may fit the bill, mate.
No, we're not doing Rian Xerxes. Rian Xerxes. I do think I do think that a lot of the Soboslai criticism is more in comparison to the fact that people just want Florian Wirtz or Rian Xerxes. And again, I don't think that Rian Xerxes is a bad player, but his output's just not there. If you're mad about what Soboslai does his output, then Xerxes isn't really that big of a step. He is a bit more of a flexible player, but he's a little bit more finesse. He's a little bit smaller. What makes Dom so unique for what he is and why Klopp wanted him is the fact that he does give you that power, that directness as well. And yeah, I agree that when you want a 10, you think of a 10 as a someone who's going to pick a lock pick of a pass. You think of your Philip Coutinho's, your Mesut Özils, Martin Odegaard's. Who else is would be fit that role currently in the world? Ousmane Dembele, kind of, or oh god, who plays 10 for Barcelona? It's not Pedri and Gavi are both injured. I don't think they really play with a 10 right now. Cole Palmer, though I think Cole Palmer is kind of more of a Dele
Danny
Alli
Olmo.
striker. What?
Is-
Oh yeah, Denny
yeah,
Olmo.
Mm.
Denny
Danny
Olmo,
Olmo,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but even Denny Olmo, I think, is just kind of an inferior version of what Szoboszlai does. Again, like a bit more finesse. He's a very technically good player, but when Denny Olmo plays the 10, he's playing the 10 that very traditional sense, not the way that Arteta has had their 10s playing, or even Guardiola, where 10 is essentially a second forward. I think it's I think, like many things within discussion, there is a lot of very passionate opinions that do not take into account nuance or the possibility of, if Slot didn't like him, he wouldn't be playing him if he wasn't doing something correct. Which then leads to conversations about ambition and why don't we spend $200 million on a Jude Bellingham and Florian Wirtz, and why isn't Xabi Alonso the manager of Liverpool Football Club? I think with Szoboszlai, it really comes down to, if Slot, yes, we'll have to judge him at the end of the season. But for me, if the worst thing Szoboszlai is inconsistent, at what is he? I think he's 23, 24 now. So he's still not quite the finished product at a midfielder, but he's definitely coming into what you would see as the finished product. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. But there are people out there that are going to say, sell him, sell Doran, and buy Wirtz, buy Rian Xerxes, and buy Kylian Mbappe and Aurelien Tchouameni from Madrid, because Madrid are crap and they need center backs right now.
I mean, it doesn't sound bad if you put it like that,
Oh no, when I say it very flippantly and like that, it's like, actually, that wouldn't be such a bad thing. That wouldn't be such a bad move overall. It's the same thing with like the defensive mid and the six discussion as well. That is not going to end. I mean, again, if we end up this season with a Champions League, a Premier League, and let's just say we lose a cup final. Let's just say we win 2 trophies or one of those trophies. The one thing I'm going to hear all summer is Liverpool didn't do X, Y, Z because insert player here. We didn't buy a 6. We didn't buy a defensive left back, left center back. We didn't buy Florian Wirtz when we could have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is all just like, it's all counterfactual, so it doesn't matter. But it also misses the fact that this team right now was good enough, was leading the league last year. Chekri, not Xerxes. I'm not. My pronunciation of this last name is not very great. I have not nailed it down. I got Mamardashvili and I've got Kvaratskhelia down. So my Georgian is good. My Rian. Oh, don't hate on me, Mihai. I'm doing my best.
Let me tell you what Dan meant. He meant Mamardashvili and Kvaratskhelia. Those two.
Yeah. That's why I said Mamardashvili and Kvaratskhelia. I'm sorry. I'm congested and I have a speech impediment, Mihai. You should feel bad about me now for mocking my pronunciation.
Sorry, I had to do it on a Monday, on a random Monday. I was telling Carter not to say Chiesa anymore, and Ever since then, it kind of stuck with me now. But
Wait,
yeah,
wait, 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 wait. Let's back up because that's how I say it. So how are we pronouncing Chiesa?
yeah,
It's
Chiesa.
Chiesa, not
Chiesa.
Chiesa.
Okay. Oh, right, right.
Carter was saying Chiesa, like
Chiesa.
cheese for you there. Federico Chiesa.
Oh, that's the accent right there. Nice, nice, Dan.
I like it.
Let's move on from that. So yeah, like the other topic that I wanted to mention is obviously we won't go too far ahead because we have a massive game tomorrow, but it does feel, Charlie, like it's the best possible moment to have Madrid and City in the same week. When looking at their form, at the players that they're missing from both of them, it feels like we could gain some massive, massive confidence now with getting, let's say, you know, even if not getting 2 wins. I think for us, obviously, the big one is going to be City because we've started off so well in the Champions League. But if we get 2 points or even a draw and a win then at the weekend, it's gonna it's gonna get massive confidence into this side.
100%. 100. Yeah. The by being so confident, comfortable in both leagues, it just gives us that wriggle room. So if we do drop the points against Madrid, it doesn't mean the end of the world. We've started so well. That competition is a bit of a different one. Obviously it's very different. Obviously it's the Super League, the way that we want to call it, whatever you want to call it now. But it gives us the opportunity to think and rest certain players. I know it's Real Madrid, but we can actually go into that game thinking we have enough wiggle room to think about Man City for the weekend. Whereas Man City on their side, they need to get out of this funk. They've lost 5 in a row. They need to get a win. They need to stop the rot. And if they get a win, but then they've outdone themselves or they've got another injury to a key player, that's just starting to build that momentum coming into the weekend, and they can't afford to lose any more games. Certainly not continuing this bad run of form that they've got themselves in. We were thinking, oh, perhaps sign a new 2-year contract. That's just going to g up their team and their players, but the result today kind of just tells you a different story. There's some bad things going on at Man City. It can't just be Rodri's missing, and that's the end of Man City itself. There's something deep rooted in terms of the players. What's actually happened? Have they lost faith in Pep? And maybe we've seen this with Klopp last season in a certain way where because we've had so long with a particular manager, maybe the ideas dilute themselves, or there's certain aspects of the coaching team have left or take on too much. So the way I see it with Klopp, he took on too much and then delegated a lot of the coaching to Pep Linders, and whether that idea actually fed through correctly, who knows? That's just a conversation for another day. It's a massive opportunity for Liverpool to not lose momentum. It doesn't mean that we have to win those 2 games. It's just a case of we get through this week, we see what happens with Newcastle, Everton, because for me, that's the bigger fixtures, the Newcastle and Everton game, because those are the games we can't be affording to lose.
Yeah, completely agree. And it's like then the other thing that I was thinking about, when looking at these 2 games coming up, it's we obviously know and remember like the past fixtures in, like, let's say the past 6 years now against Madrid. We know that pretty much every chance they got, they kind of spanked us. Even though it doesn't, well, I don't want to remember that final in the Champions League in 2022 because that one just seemed so much different. It's like, have you ever seen a game as one-sided that has not ended in a win for the dominant side? I don't know, but we're over that now, and we're gonna obviously look ahead. Is a win against Madrid and City going to basically turn this side into a machine now?
I don't know if it'll turn us into the machine. I would say with Charlie, it's not necessary for us to win either trophy in order to get that win. I would say that the value of a win, besides obviously the 3 points and all the tangible assets, the tangible successes that you can get from those wins, it doesn't guarantee a league title, doesn't guarantee the Champions League title. But what it will do is that it'll get those players over that mental hurdle. Because if there's one mental hurdle that this current Liverpool team have is with most of the players we have is that loss against Madrid in the final. But if you're Virgil van Dijk and Salah, you lost to them in 2017 in the Champions League final. You lost to them in 2 legs in 2020, 2021, when this was also a weaker Madrid team with Zidane, and you weren't able to pull off a win when people, even in Madrid, thought that you should have. There's also the fact in 22-23, where you go 2-0 up in 6 minutes and you get beat, I think it was like 5-2 on aggregate or 6-2 on aggregate overall. So there's also this sense of um, um, injustice from losing to that Madrid team more than you arguably should have, or you should have at least pulled out a more positive result on paper. Because if you look at even the aggregate scores, it's just heavily weighted against Madrid, which doesn't necessarily reflect the performances, but it does reflect Madrid's voodoo in the Champions League, as we could say it. I think with City, yeah, voodoo, yeah, exactly. I do think with City, it's very much a, like I mentioned earlier, if they can break them mentally, at this point, especially since that's a City side that doesn't have David Silva. They brought back Ilkay Gundogan, but he's not the same player. John Stones has been injured. They don't have Eric Laporte. They don't have Vincent Kompany. They don't have a lot of their emotional leaders that you would expect. Like Kevin De Bruyne is not the same player. He's still good, but he's not the same player. And obviously, if I was Kevin De Bruyne at his age, won everything he's won, he'd be like, I can't be asked to do this again. There's no Sergio Aguero. There's no Riyad Mahrez. There's no Leroy Sané. There's no Raheem Sterling. Pretty much everyone there that you would like despise really comes down to one player, that's Bernardo Silva, because he is a little rat, and we all hate him, even though we'd all love him to be on our team. Like, I absolutely despise Bernardo Silva. And I just want someone to snap him in half. Not literally. This is for legal purposes, this is a joke. But that's like the one player that really winds you up really with that City team. Anybody else is kind of like, who cares? Like, Mendel Akanji, yeah, like he's fine. Who cares? Rico Lewis, he's a youth player. He's talented. Yeah, who cares? Savinho, very talented player. Who cares? Jeremy Doku, again, talented player, a bit inconsistent, a bit raw, impact not really there. Who cares? Erling Haaland, no one absolutely likes, but again, it's kind of like Haaland, he scores goals. Ultimately, like, we all wish we had him, but we don't have him. So, ultimately, who cares? So for the City side, I would say it's very much a sense of just breaking that team's mentality, because no one's really done that since Liverpool did that in 1920. And the only reason we didn't win more titles was because COVID hit and a bunch of other things happened. Because if COVID doesn't happen in 2020, I think there's every chance Liverpool win 2 or 3 more titles off the back of that, because City's mentality was just done by the end of 2020. That was when they lost to Lyon in the I think it was the semifinal or quarterfinal. I think they lost to Olympic Lyon. Pep did. Like, that's kind of the watershed moment within like this rivalry. So if Liverpool can break City's mentality again, on top of the pending investigation, charges, and court filings by the Premier League against City, and the fact that Pep got a 2-year contract, which just means he's just going to get a bit bigger payout when he ultimately leaves, and he's like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, yeah, that's just gonna like tank Manchester City's tank this rivalry back to where it should be, which is City or a overpriced, overplayed team that will underachieve, which is what they were pretty much until Pep Guardiola got there, with the likes of Manuel Pellegrini and even Roberto Mancini.
All right. Well, thank you for the analysis once again, Dan. It's great to have you on, obviously, every time. Colin, uh, we're gonna yeah, sorry, it's like we didn't have the Dan slander in the chat now, so I gotta bring a bit of it, so that you don't feel that good. We don't want to get it like, um, oh, I'm forgetting the idiom. Well, anyways, Colin, Thinking about the next two fixtures that we're gonna have, obviously Madrid in the Champions League, City in the Prem. It feels like, at the beginning of the season, I remember when I looked at it, after the fixtures were kind of set. I remember seeing them and I was thinking, 3 days later we're playing Madrid, and then 3 days later we're gonna play City, and it feels tough. But now I'm just thinking, bring it on.
Yeah, I maybe am a little cool. Not that I'm not excited, and not that I don't think that we can win. I still like they still are hugely challenging games with massive world class talent across many of the positions. Maybe City less so at the current moment, given their status. I think it was the third goal. Did you see Ilkay Gundogan literally like walking? He like couldn't move. So if he's gonna play against our midfield, like he's gonna get ran around. He looked slower than I am. Like I could not believe he was like yelling at some. I think Son had made a run from deeper, and he's supposed to be tracking him from that like real central position, and he's just like yelling at one of the defenders like 30 yards further down the field to like pick him up because he wasn't even like running hard. He just was like, I'm not worried about that midfield. There's other players on City who I am more worried about. I think our midfield will dominate that game. I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about that kind of battle in that way. I think obviously that almost becomes, especially if they don't have positive results between now and then, that almost becomes like a rallying cry for them. Like they will have to be up for it to try to turn their season around, which makes it a little trickier. But also, when teams are desperate like that, they overextend themselves, and you can hit them on the break, or their concentration lapses a lot more often than when you're playing very calmly. I think the Madrid game's hard. I still think that they've had our number. They know that, and we know that. There's still all of the Trent rumoring, like that's an added layer to this.
We're a different animal, though.
We are, and I think someone in the comments pointed out they also have some pretty key injuries at the moment. So sometimes you catch a team at a good time to beat them, and it seems like a good time to beat the pants off them.
Yeah, they have no center backs right now. They have barely any defenders and center backs. They're all pretty much like injured. Militao, any center back you could think of. I think Rudiger's fit, and that might be it at current state, though I could be wrong about that.
So to what Charlie said earlier, rest Nunez tomorrow, absolutely unleash him in the midweek and let him run Rudiger, run him around in circles and have nobody else to help cover. Like I think that physical matchup, we can have a debate about Darwin's finishing percentages all day long, but like the one thing that nobody can debate is that he is a handful to have to cover all game. He is an absolute pain and very problematic for center backs if they're not, physically up to that challenge. So, I have a expectation that it's going to be a fun week of watching Liverpool. Certainly will be interesting. But I'm thinking that both these games are really ripe for the taking.
I think one thing that I was thinking about hearing you all talk about these two matches, in my head was just, we need Anfield now more than ever. It feels like against Madrid, against City, in these two especially, it feels like with the moment that they're in, with Madrid and their injuries and their form, in City as well. Imagine us going 2-0 up and then having Anfield rocking. Like that's what we need. If we can get like the early goal, if we can open the score, and the confidence will be sky high. And then obviously we're gonna have to, sky's the limit, I guess. this is where we're going to end tonight's live stream. Thank you very much to Dan, to Charlie, to Colin, and obviously to everyone who tuned in, to who subscribed, who liked the video, and obviously left their thoughts there in the chat as well. Very, very, very fun week we're going to have from tomorrow to the next Sunday. By this time, or not by this time, but well, 8 days ahead. By this time, hopefully, we're going to see Liverpool still top of the two leagues with 3 more wins by then. So that is going to be a very, very fun live stream if that happens next Sunday. Thank you again very much to everyone who tuned in. See you tomorrow after the game and 7:30 p.m. UK time pretty much every day. Have a great one. Up the Reds.